Hello everyone, welcome back to brand new series on Node.js. My name is Prithviraj. I'm a technical trainer with Uplatz. In this session, we'll see introduction on Node.js. What is Node.js? Why we need to go for Node.js? So here in my presentation, I have listed all the things which are necessary for you to understand all the basics of Node.js, and I have given you all the points which required for you to understand the need of Node.js step by step, and all the points are easily understandable, very user friendly. So now let's see what is the need of Node.js. Before Node.js, we have web applications running in the server. So let's understand first what is a web application, and when it comes to web environment, what are the some of the terminologies generally we come across in the project or in real-time scenarios. So first let me explain all the things, then I'll be back to this presentation with Node.js. Fine. So when it comes to web environment, so a lot of people are having confusion with respect to this terminologies. Some of the terminologies generally we use in web environment. So basically, we have different types of applications in the market. Some are into desktop applications, some applications are into mobile, some are into web-based. So we have different categories of applications. We have a desktop application and we have a web application. Even we have mobile applications. Like this, applications are categorized based on the device and even based on the location where they are executing. Some will be in the form of installable softwares, some will be running in the server where we access them. So when it comes to web environment, mostly we will speak about web applications. So in our upcoming sessions, I'll be using frequently the word called as web applications always. So let's understand what is the web application and where they are available in the real-time applications. So first, let's get clarity on that. And I will also show you some of the terminologies which we are going to use in our upcoming sessions, how they are related to our Node.js. So when it comes to application called as web application, so point number one, they run on server. So the first point when it comes to web applications, they run on server. So let's see what is this server and what things will be there inside the server. So when I say web applications, immediately we need to remember a server. So we have a software called as server. So don't think server is something which is very big in size, or don't imagine anything else like that. So basically a server is a one more software that is also written in some other languages. So we have a server here. Generally, I'm explaining about the real-time scenarios which we come across in our day-to-day applications. So generally, you consider any server, be it Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, or any server, Gmail, Yahoo, etc. So for each and every server, generally different types, lot of clients will be available in the market. Example, you consider Gmail. So the number of requests per day in Gmail are very high. Traffic will be generally high for Gmail, Yahoo, and even for Facebook. Lot of requests will be there. So one second. So here going with the client one. When I use this terminology called as a client one, please remember this as a browser window. Technically we call it as a client. So each browser window acts as one client for the server software. So let me go with the 5 clients, namely client 1, client 2, and even we have client 3, client 4, finally end up with client 5. So we have 5 clients available. Just I'm giving you a short example to understand, to inject this concept. So this is a client 4. Next we have client 5. It means the total 5 browser windows are available. So whenever a client want to access any resource from the server. So example, client 1, nothing but a browser window, want to access the login page of Gmail. For this, generally, user will open one browser window and start giving the request in the browser window. Assume this is our browser window. So this is our browser window. User is requesting the Gmail page, that is http://www.gmail.com. In the browser address bar, user is typing this and click enter. After clicking the enter, where request will be submitted, request will go and hit the server in the backend. Generally, every web application contains server in the backend. The main purpose of server is to process the request and send response back to the client or browser window. So you can call it as a client or browser window. Different people uses different terminologies to represent that. Fine. In our case, we will also go with the browser window. We have total 5 browser windows, nothing but 5 clients. Whenever a client requires any resource from the server, he should make a request in the form of HTTP request. So we have a famous protocol called as HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol. Using that, we will request for some resource that is deployed in the server. So basically, in the server, we have different types of projects deployed. Example, you consider a server with the name Prithvi Raj. Inside of that, we can have different types of projects deployed like Gmail, Facebook, Twitter, Amazon, Flipkart. So for all any website, the backend server will be there, which will monitor all the activities of the website. Next, for each and every website, generally they will be having different types of users. Example, Gmail. If I want to use Gmail, I want a login page of Gmail. How can I get login page of Gmail? From browser window, I need to use this URL called as, this is called as a URL, Uniform Resource Locator. This is the URL. Generally, we use with the domain name. So here domain name is gmail.com. So we use this URL gmail.com to get Gmail login page. So from where we are getting this login page, that is the application which is deployed in the server. Nothing but the project which is deployed in the server. So whenever I say project, we'll be having different types of files present inside a project. So let's understand the typical project directory are the necessary or minimum files present inside a project. So I'm using a project called as Uplatz. Generally, this is a website, web-based project or web application. So as I said, each and every project contains different types of files associated with that project. Technically, we call it as web resource programs. See some of the terminologies which I'm using here, web resource programs. Nothing but a file or a program of an application is called as web resource program. So here I'm taking HTML, .html files, and we'll be having generally image files to display our image related to the company or organization. And we'll be having different types of server-side programs like Java, .NET, PHP. Will be having a style sheet associated with that HTML. Moreover, we'll be having JavaScript files, some other XML files, some part of JSON files. Like this, different types of web resource programs are present inside of that project. So here .css. So .css, lot of files will be there. So I'm showing you one file with extension. .js, nothing but JavaScript. And we'll be having, if it is a Java based web application, we'll be having servlets. So if it is Java based, we'll also be having JSP files. Moreover, to display the images, we'll be having some images or .image files, .jpeg files. So these are the files generally present inside a typical web application. See, the servlets and JSP are related to Java. If you are from different backgrounds like .NET and PHP, you can replace the terminologies with your specified server-side web resource programs. And moreover, we'll be having JavaScript files, image files, etc. Some part of XML. Generally, XML will be there, and we'll also be having the JSON files. So more or less, our application is going to contain this kind of things generally in our real-time projects. So JSON files, etc. So these are the things generally we see in the project when it comes to web application. You consider any technology. So we have different types of programming languages available in the market. So Java, we have .NET from Microsoft, even we have PHP, now trending Node.js. So these are the different types of programming languages which are capable of handling the web resource programs on the server side. And we have two terminologies to understand here. One is client side, second one is server side. So client side web resource programs. So just now explained what is a web resource program. A file or program of an application is called a web resource. We have in real time client side web resource programs, and we even have server side web resource programs. Yeah. We have both client side, server side. So how we can recognize whether the web resource program is client side or server side? So make sure where the web resource program is running, not based on the location. You need to understand based on the place where your application is running. If your web resource program is running in the browser window, it comes under client side web resource programs. If that particular web resource program is running in the server itself, that is called server side web resource programs. So like that, we need to understand first what are client side web resource programs and what are server side web resource programs. So when it comes to client side web resource program, HTML we have, even we have JavaScript. One second. Yeah. Even we have JavaScript associated with that file, and we have different types of things with respect to client side web resource programs, image files, uh, CSS files, HTML, images, JavaScript, etc., and even TypeScript. Now, when it comes to server side web resource programs, we have Java, we have PHP, we have .NET, and we even have Node.js. So I'm not going to discuss Node.js at this point. So first I want to introduce the remaining server-side programs like Java, PHP, .NET and their flow in a typical web application. So generally these comes under server-side web resource programs and client-side web resource programs. Now we will discuss about how a typical web server handles the request generated by the client. Now, whenever a client gives the request to the server to access some resource, assume that the resource is nothing but the program or a file related to the project deployed in the server. So I told you in the server we'll be having a lot of projects or lot of applications deployed. Each project serves a particular URL. Fine. Now let me draw that once again so that you can clearly understand. I will show you the basic typical web application. So this is a server. So I'm going to show you a small example how our server is going to handle the request of a particular browser window or client. So here goes our project. So this is the project. So I'm going with one project which is already deployed in the server. So let me change the color. Yeah. So this is a server and this is the project deployed in the server. I will name this project as Uplatz. Our project name is Uplatz. So this is the project or application that is already deployed in the server. As I said, we will be having different types of web resource programs inside a server. This is one web resource program, second one, third one, like this lot of web resource programs. So I'm not going to write the names. You can follow the above diagram with respect to the names. So we'll be having different types of web resource programs like this, each serving specific purpose. Now, assume we have different types of browser windows or clients who want to access the website Uplatz by typing www.uplatz.com. So these are the various clients where they want to access the website called as Uplatz, client 1. This is the client 2. Here goes client 3, client 4. Fine. Now we are done with the 4 clients, nothing but 4 browser windows. Now I am sending one request to the website called as Uplatz, which is deployed in the server. First, don't think request will directly go and hit the project or application that is deployed in the server. No, first it is going to hit the server in the backend. Then server responsibility is to forward the request to write web resource programs. So once the request is given to the server, a response will be generated back to the client. This is universal fact. We know because every day we'll be browsing different types of sites like Gmail, Yahoo, Facebook, Amazon, Flipkart, etc. Now let me show you all the points. What is going to happen in the server. So assume the client is requesting for some resource. That resource is communicating with the files or database in the machine, server machine, or in the database. So generally we'll be having the database in the backend. So this is the database. So assume this is some famous database will take Oracle database. So this is the Oracle database. Just a sample example I'm showing you. You can take any type of database available in the market. That is up to you. Fine. So once let me complete the diagram so that I can understand. I will explain all the points related to this. Fine, we are done with the diagram. Now, so by seeing this diagram, we can easily understand. Client is sending some request, server is sending some response. If necessary, server or the application that is deployed in the server will communicate with the database if necessary, or file systems. Anything is valid. So based on the requirement, based on the coding written by the developer, it may communicate with the files or it may communicate with a database. So this is the flow of a typical web application. Assume in this project Uplatz that is done either with server-side programming languages like Java, PHP, or even .NET. So I'm not considering Node.js at this point. So let me explain the points. What is going to happen whenever a new request is generated by browser window to the server? Let me write the points. So this is the requirement. Point number one. Client or browser window. Client or browser window sent request to server. So in server, we will have our application deployed already application will be there in the server. So what server will do? Server will send the request to appropriate web resource program, or first of all appropriate project, create a project deployed in server, because we'll be having a lot of projects generally available in the server. So some companies will deploy one project, some companies will deploy multiple projects, where those projects again in turn communicate with each other. Fine. So that server generally pass a request to appropriate project deployed in the server. In every project, when it comes to web, in every project, we have different types of web resource programs. We have different types of web resource programs doing different tasks. So each perform different types of tasks. So a requirement is server will send the request to appropriate project deployed in the server. So based on the request, generally particular web resource program, based on the request, generally particular web resource program will respond. Now assume that particular web resource program want to interact with the file system or database. Then web resource programs will communicate with either file systems or database softwares. So based on the requirement, so it can be either file systems or database software. Fine. So our database in the backend. Now, what will happen? Meanwhile, remaining clients in the above diagram, remaining clients want to wait. You can see this client want to wait until completing the response generation from the server. Until this client gets response from the server, these remaining clients want to wait. So these are in waiting state currently. So these three clients, namely client 2, 3, 4 are in waiting state for the server to respond. See here, when it comes to point number 7, web server programs are communicating with either file systems or database. So assume it is taking some time. Generally in the real time, it will take some time. It's not that much easy. They need to communicate with the database. They need to perform some operations in the database. So at least minimum time it will take. Now, while web resource programs are otherwise, while web resource programs are processing file or database operations, remaining client wants to wait until the first request related response is sent back to browser window. Until that, remaining clients want to be in waiting state. Once at point number 8, they are done with interacting with the database, and server will send the response back to the client. Once the request related once the request processing is completed, last step, once request processing is completed, server will send response to client. Server is going to send the response back to the client. So this is what happening in the real time. Meanwhile, all the remaining clients want to wait. So here, the clients want to wait until completing request processing of the first browser window or first client. So here, these things will happen. This is the typical web application or a traditional web server. This is how request is going to be handled by the server. Traditional approach without Node.js. So waiting time is increased until the server sends the response back to this client. Remaining clients will be in waiting state. So which increases the waiting time. Assume if the traffic is high for the website, for high traffic websites like Uplatz, traffic websites like Uplatz, Gmail, Facebook. Example. So assume how much time it will take to serve each and every request related response. We can imagine. So performance will be down. Moreover, it will take a lot of time. It will increases the waiting time of the client, which is really very, very sad in real time if we follow this kind of things. And at one point, the client will be frustrated. He will close the window back. He will never visit that site also if that website is very, very slow. So no one is going to spend that much time generally in the real-time websites. If loading is taking that much time in, so no one is having that much time also to spend on loading the web page. So to eliminate this waiting time, we have one more server-side program called as Node.js. To eliminate this, we have Node.js in the market, which is released in 2009 by this person called as Ryan Dahl. He is the person who came up with the solution server-side program called as Node.js in 2009. Till now, it is having good name in the market and it is really doing wonderful job in the market with respect to server-side web resource programs. So it really saves a lot of time and even increases the productivity of web application and reduces the response time from the server by following asynchronous input-output modeling. So I'll come back to this point. Let me show you the presentation and explain the remaining concepts so that I'll be back to this and I'll explain the web server with respect to Node.js. How Node is going to handle the above 8 points I have written here. How Node is going to handle this situation with the Node server. So let me go back to presentation and explain these things. So in 2009, Rand Dahl introduced a new approach to server-side runtime written in JavaScript. So it enables requesting in out of web server to be processed concurrently and asynchronously. So a lot of times in Node.js we'll be using this terminology called as asynchronous, using a concept called as non-blocking or asynchronous input output. So that's how Node.js has started. So basically this Node.js app runs in a single process. So instead of creating a new request or a new thread for each and every request, it is going to create a new thread for every request. But basically it will not create a new thread for every request. It is going to create a single process. It makes such apps very efficient with using V8 JavaScript engine. So you can go through this presentation clearly so that you can understand my points which I have written here, each and everything. Now, let me go to next presentation, and here you can see the diagram with respect to traditional and node server. Basically, in the traditional server, it is going to create a new thread for each and every request. Otherwise, the request should be in waiting state until one of the thread becomes free from the server. On the other hand, you can see the Node.js. So mostly it will take support of callback mechanism to overcome this. So it runs on single thread model, asynchronous input output. So it is never going to wait. It is never going to wait until the request related response is back to the server. So it will take the request, pass the request to write web resource program, ready to handle next request. So until the first request related response comes back, it is not going to wait. So Node.js purely eliminates the waiting time, thus giving us the better performance and reduces the response time like anything. So in this diagram, you can understand these concepts clearly. So if you are not done with this, you can go through my diagram and you can understand my points which I have written clearly. Now, let's see what is Node.js. So basically, a lot of people are confused whether it is a scripting language or programming language or it is a technology or framework. So what I would like to say is it's a runtime environment. First of all, it's not a programming language. It's not a technology at all. Moreover, it's not a framework. It is a runtime environment that allows software developers to launch both front-end and back-end of web apps using JavaScript. So Node.js main concern is it gives the runtime environment allowing us to run JavaScript in the server. So far, we know JavaScript is the only programming language which runs in the only in browser window. Now we can start using JavaScript even in the server also. Even in the server machine, we can start running JavaScript taking support of Node.js. So Node.js extensively has different types of modules to support all our requirements. So now let me show you some of the features of Node.js. So the very first feature, it is an open source. Since like Java and other languages like Python and all, Node.js is also an open source. We don't need to pay anything for that. And even Node.js runs on various machines like Windows, Mac, Linux, etc. It is a cross-platform, and Node.js allows us to use JavaScript as a server-side language. With that, we can develop a more sophisticated and good web application. We can take support of JavaScript even in the server-side languages. We can also fill the gap. What are the limitations generally we faced in the real-time front-end applications? We can fill that gap by taking or by running JavaScript in the server side. Even Node has the capability to interact with the files and folders on the server, like any other programming language, a server-side programming language does. So it has the capability to create files, read, update, delete files and folders on the server. Using Node.js, it's very easy to communicate with the database. By working with the suitable drivers like Mongoose and all, we can make our Node.js communicating with the database. Using Node.js, we can create our own server. Moreover, Node.js follows asynchronous and event-driven approach, thus making Node.js a very fast application. It is single-threaded, but it is highly scalable. Chrome's V8 JavaScript engine is the heart of Node.js. So the latest version of Node.js is 14. And you can see the definition from official website of Node.js. Let me move to the official website. That is nodejs.org. So here in the official website, they mentioned very clearly Node.js is a JavaScript runtime built on Chrome's V8 JavaScript engine. This the V8 JavaScript engine is the heart of Node.js. Moreover, this Node.js is written in C++. So if you are from C++ background, you can even easily understand these concepts clearly. So when it comes to my training, so you don't need to be from any type of background. So because I'm going to explain each and everything from scratch, right from the installation. Now, let's see what is the latest version of Node.js available in the market. So that is the 14 is the major, minor version is 11, patch version 0. This is the current version. But generally, it is recommended for most of the users to download this version 12. In my second tutorial on installing Node.js, I'll explain you how to download, how to install, moreover, how to check the version of Node.js installed in our machine. So now, seeing this definition, we can come to know it's a runtime environment. See here, they did not specify anywhere it is a programming language or a technology or a framework. Just a JavaScript runtime, that's it, which allows us to run JavaScript outside of a browser. Now, we have seen the website of Node.js, and we have also seen one more definition from the official website Node.js. Thus, it is a JavaScript runtime built on Chrome's V8 JavaScript engine. Now, back to our presentation. Now, let's see why we need to use Node.js. Since in our day-to-day life, number of users online are increasing for any website, especially for Facebook. Every day new registrations, Gmail. Every day we'll be having lot of registrations. Lot of clients are available for those websites. So the website should be in such a position if they are getting 1 crore requests also, their server should be in a position to serve all those 1 lakh or 1 crore requests given by the clients. So to overcome the waiting time, we can happily take support of Node.js in the backend. So it is very easy for the front end and back end developers to work with the Node.js because of their effective features and better working environment. So we can eliminate the waiting time. Small projects generally we can handle with a single full stack team. That's saving our time and money. So what I want to say is using Node.js, we can even reduce the time and even no need to invest much on different types of developers. So single full stack team is enough to handle all the things. Moreover, it's just a runtime environment. Just if you install Node.js, that is more than enough. You can start writing any type of code, which is non-blocking and which will serve multiple simultaneous requests at a time. So let's see what is this Chrome V8 JavaScript engine. See, basically every browser window has a JavaScript engine. So let me show you practically. Let me open this browser. For Internet Explorer, JavaScript engine. And we can see Chakra is a free and open source JavaScript engine provided by Microsoft for its Microsoft Edge web browser. Since Internet Explorer will comes as a part of Windows operating system Microsoft, we have a Chakra JavaScript engine. If it is for our Mozilla Firefox, Spider Monkey is the JavaScript engine. For Google Chrome, for Google Chrome, JavaScript engine will be V8 JavaScript engine. We can see V8 is an open source JavaScript engine developed by the Chromium project for Google Chrome and Chromium web browsers. So this is the JavaScript engine for Google Chrome. And Node.js uses this JavaScript engine. This JavaScript engine is the heart of Node.js, where Node.js is built. So that is written in C++. So it is used in Chrome and Node.js among others. So they generally implement ECMA script specification and WebAssembly, and they run on Windows 7 or later, and some other operating systems like Mac and Linux. So basically it is the very fast. This JavaScript engine V8 is very fast when compared to other JavaScript engine. This is from Google itself. So it is completely written in C++. Basically, our computers can understand only machine language. They are not aware of JavaScript objects or HTML or CSS. I will come to this point about computers can understand only machine language later after this slide. So V8 engine can also be embedded into C++. And please remember, Node.js is written in C++. Now let's understand why computers cannot understand other things except machine language. Because our computer itself is a machine, they cannot understand other language syntaxes, etc. That's the reason generally we have compilers to do this work. Example, if I consider Java, it is one of the programming language. Directly you cannot give our program Java to the machine. We need to use a compiler in the middle which will convert our Java programming language into a machine understandable language. Then only our machine can understand. Similarly, we have a JavaScript engine called as V8 associated with Node.js. It will take care of converting our JavaScript into machine language when we are running the JavaScript outside of a browser from our machine. So that is the main purpose of Chrome V8 JavaScript engine. So that's about V8 JavaScript engine. Now let's see what are the top companies who are using Node.js. So the first is the PayPal, which is very famous and related to payment gateways. Whenever we want to do any payment, generally we can go with the PayPal. And we have Netflix, which is the #1 streaming device to play all the movies in different languages. And we have Uber, LinkedIn, eBay, Mozilla, and Microsoft and IBM. All these uses Node.js in their backend. All these are top companies which uses Node.js. Now, let me back to previous concept. We are discussing about Node.js, traditional web server. Same traditional web server. Let's see how Node.js is going to handle with the Node server. So let me write the points related to that. How Node.js will handle client requests. So how our Node.js is going to handle the client generated request. Take the request from browser. Next, forward the request to appropriate web resource programs. Appropriate program. Next, so that program or the right program, or the program will interact with the files or database. Meanwhile, files are database. That's so assume it is taking some time. Meanwhile, programs finished processing the operations with files or database. By the time programs finish processing that operations, once they are done with communicating with the files or database, what Node.js will do, Node.js is ready to take next request. So it is ready to take a next request. That's it. And handles that request accordingly, like what we discussed from 1 to 4 steps. So here it is not going to wait until it gets a response from that particular program related to our application. Once request related response is ready, Node.js will send the response. So Node.js will send the response back to the client. So here the main important point you need to consider, Node.js eliminated the waiting time. Here at point number 7, remaining browsers want to wait. Our clients should wait until the first client request related response is back. Remaining clients are supposed to wait. But in Node.js, we don't have any waiting time associated. Node completely eliminates the waiting time, thus improving the performance of the application. So that is the difference between a traditional web server and way of handling the request by the Node.js is completely different. So here Node.js will handle all these requests by following asynchronous input output modeling or asynchronous input output. Asynchronous means at a time processing. Asynchronous non-blocking. So non-blocking means no need to wait for any other things to happen. Non-blocking input output model. So this is the one followed by Node.js to serve to its clients simultaneously. So ultimately waiting time is reduced in Node.js. So this is the way of handling the request with respect to Node.js. And here we don't need to wait for the response from the client, I mean from the server. Once the response is ready, it will send the response to the client. Meanwhile, it will start processing subsequent or upcoming request parallelly. So thus improving the performance of the application. So now we are done with the introduction on Node.js. And remember, whenever we are learning any programming language, we need to know the latest version of that particular programming language or technology or framework. So latest version of Node.js is the 14. And in our upcoming tutorials, I'm going to use the editor called as VS Code. So I'm going to use this editor VS Code. Same thing we used even in our Angular tutorials. So even for Node.js also, in our complete Node.js sessions, I'm going to use this editor VS Code. That is also open source. We can download for free of cost and start working with that. And moreover, so I'm going to concentrate much on programming. So basically, since this is the introduction, I mainly focused on all the things like this. In our upcoming sessions, our complete sessions will be on hands-on experience with the programming. So I mainly focus on programming. So you can go through all my presentation slides so that you can get much clarity about Node.js, why we need to go for Node.js, what is the reason behind Node.js. So what happened before introduction of Node.js in the market and what is the drawback, how Node.js overcomes all these problems. So these are the things generally we need to learn before proceeding with the rest of the concepts. Once we are done, remaining things will be easy. And moreover, in the second tutorial, I'll be explaining how to install Node.js in our machine and how to check the version of Node.js installed in our machine. Later, directly, I cannot go with the Node.js concepts. Some prerequisites are there to learn Node.js. So let's see what are the prerequisites to learn Node.js. So to learn this Node.js, already you should have idea on HTML. So you should already have idea on HTML and CSS, moreover JavaScript and hoops concepts. Once if you're done with this, then you can go up with the Node.js course in our sessions. So make sure you are good with HTML, CSS, JavaScript and OOPS concepts. So to bring you that flexibility of learning this Node.js course easy, so I would like to discuss these concepts before proceeding with the actual concepts of Node.js. So firstly, I will go with a few concepts related to JavaScript, like what is let keyword, constant keyword, which are new features in ES6. And we'll be discussing about the rest operator, print operator, and we'll also be discussing about object literals and for off loop. So some of these concepts are there. Once I'm done with all these concepts, you people will get much clarity and confidence on learning Node.js. So all these are very, very important to proceed with Node.js. So once I'm done with this, then only I can enter into actual concepts of Node.js. So from tutorial 3 onwards, we'll be discussing about let keyword constant related to, I'll give you all the basics which are required for you to understand this Node.js course clearly and perfectly. So I'm done from my side with respect to introduction on Node.js. So in the next tutorial, we will see how to install Node.js in our machine. At the same time, we will also see how to check the version of Node.js along with some important points of Node.js. So thank you very much. Catch you in the next tutorial.